वेलकम टू आवर सीरीज नेशन स्टेट डायलॉग राष्ट्र राज्य संवाद श्रृंखला में आप सबका स्वागत है। आई एम उमेश कुमार गुप्ता, असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर ऑफ चाइनीज, अमिटी यूनिवर्सिटी राजस्थान, moderator for today's session. Today it's our pleasure to have an eminent Chinese scholar with us, retired Major General M. Chandran. General Chandran was a faculty member in the National Defense College, New Delhi for the past 3 years. He is currently pursuing PhD from University of Madras and an associate member of the Chatham House, London. Focus area of his research include India-China Boundary, India-Nepal Boundary, national security, and issues of South Asia and China. Very warm welcome to you, sir, in this Nation State Dialogue series. Without taking much of your time, let's start today's discussion with the first question. India and China have been managing their boundary issues well in the past. We have witnessed many standoffs between the troops of both the countries, including Doklam Issue of 2017, which were resolved peacefully. This time, the Galwan Valley dispute is being stressed for a quite long time. What are the reasons for such a prolonged standoff, and how is this time's standoff differ from earlier ones? Do you see any possibility of border war with China? And if yes, then at what scale? Sir, over to you, sir.
Okay, Umesh, we all know that the boundary problem between China and India has a history of at least about 200 years. It goes back. But I will start from the Doklam issue for the current impasse which is happening at the Ladakh-Tibet boundary. What happened in Doklam was a loss of face for China. Doklam, as you know, is in Bhutan, and that Doklam Plateau, most of it was with China, which they have been taking over a period of time. In 2017, they tried to capture, there is a ridge line at the end of it, which is called as the Jampheri Ridge. And occupation of that would have given total domination to them. So China thought that they will occupy that and show Bhutan that India cannot come to your help. As you know, India has promised help to Bhutan for or against external aggression. So Chinese troops moved towards occupying that place, and the Indian troops surprised them and stopped them, and they had to go back from there, which was a big loss of face for China. They wanted to show something to the world which they could not. So at that point of time, they certainly would have decided to take a countermeasure and do something against India, to teach India a lesson. That was what is happening in Tibet these days. What happened was, every year in the beginning, both sides, the troops come up during summer, carry out practice training, which is called as operational alert, and end of summer they go down. So as usual, the Chinese troops this time came up in March. Indian troops did not go at that point of time, because one is that this happens every year and we did not suspect that China will do anything wrong. And secondly, because of COVID and other issues, even India was taking it cool. We thought we'll send less troops in a delayed time frame. So the Chinese came up when they started the transgressions, and when they came across the LAC at some points, India reacted. But India reacted very quickly and we stopped them. So now both sides are sitting on their perception of the LAC. The only issue is, till last year, the troops were not seeing each other in their deployment. They were sitting far away. They were patrolling up to the LAC. Whereas now they are sitting face to face and well equipped, well trained, and the dialogue is going on for disengagement. China has enough troops and infrastructure to stay in that line. So they will not go back. Going back from there will be another loss of face like Doklam. They will continue to be there. India, on the other hand, is defending the territory, so we also cannot afford to move back from that line. So de facto, both sides will continue sitting wherever they are, entrench, take up strong defenses and face each other. So this is what is happening in Galwan. Is unlike Doklam or any other place, they will not go back. You asked me the question, why is it taking so long? What I'm telling is, it has not only taken so long, it is going to be a permanent feature. This deployment on both sides will continue for a long time, and it is likely to become permanent like that on the LC with Pakistan, where you have a proper deployment face to face. Now, whether this will lead to a war, I don't think so. Because of the reason, Xi Jinping started this to divert attention from the internal problems he was facing, just like Mao did in 1962. So if they initiate a war, and if they don't win clearly like in 62, it will be a loss of face for Xi Jinping. And China knows that they cannot defeat India. They can at the most capture a small post, but at this India will capture in some other place. So it will lead to a stalemate, which will be a loss of face for China. So there cannot be a war, but there can be a minor skirmish at some place like what happened at a couple of places in the last few months.
Thank you, sir, for this detailed and enlightening reply. As you have rightly said that, yes, Chinese and Indian troops are not going back this time. They're going to be there. And also, you have rightly said there is a less possibility of any sort of war. Yes, short skirmishes may happen. Okay, now let's go back to 1962. And we know in October 1962, China launched a war against India and captured a large portion of our territory. However, on 20th November 1962, China declared unilateral ceasefire and withdrew its troops to the almost original positions. What were the main reasons behind China unilaterally declaring ceasefire and withdrawing its forces? China also handed over prisoners of war and captured weapons and equipments. As per your analysis, what were the real motive behind China's such incomprehensible and unpredictable actions? Means winning the territory and then going back unilaterally. So what were the reasons, sir? What do you say?
One of the major reasons for the war to start in 1962 was Mao losing popularity within the Chinese Communist Party, because 62 was preceded by the Great Leap Forward, which resulted in millions of Chinese dying of starvation. And Mao's policies were not popular, so he lost his position of importance in the Chinese Communist Party. So he wanted to do something real to show the Chinese people that he is still in power. That is one of the major reasons why he launched a war against India. And once he launched the war, by about 20th of November, when the unilateral withdrawal started, he actually achieved what he wanted. He showed the world that he defeated India. So when he did that, he totally left focus on the military which was in India and shifted his focus internally to make himself a strong man again within the party. So you can imagine the large number of PLA troops who are in Indian territory, far away from their home. The party lost the focus and they stopped giving them instructions what to do. They were just told to come back. So it was not a well planned withdrawal like a military operation, which they went. Wherever they were, they just started walking back. And as it is, they had reached a place from where they had no link to their logistic bases. They were all without food and water. and the local people were not helping them. And while going back, they did not carry any equipment along because firstly, they could not carry it at that point of time. Secondly, India did not have any major kind of equipment which they could carry or which they left. Whatever things we had, we know the troops, our own troops withdrawing, do not leave the equipment behind. That's why they could not capture. They may have captured some rifles or things, smaller weapons like that. So the question of the weapons, why they have not taken it back or returned it. Next, coming to the prisoners of war, they captured. The issue of prisoners of war became a PR issue, public relations issue for China. They actually took them from Tibet to Beijing. They took them on a China tour. They displayed them in front of the media, and then they handed over back to show the world that Chinese are magnanimous and better masters. They wanted to show the prisoners of war also that, see, your government is not doing anything for you, but we are doing. That is the major issue. And one more issue is 20th November, when the withdrawal started, was the same day when America lifted their quarantine on Cuba. The quarantine is, in 1962, USSR was going to deploy some nuclear weapons in Cuba. So USA put a line of ships in the Atlantic saying that if the USSR ships cross this line, we'll put a nuclear bomb on USSR. So what it meant was that US focus was completely in that area at that point of time. China made use of that area because China was worried that India may get help from USA. And the period of this quarantine matched exactly the period when China launched the war on 20th October and when the quarantine was lifted on 20th November when they started withdrawal. So that could be also one of the reasons.
Thank you, sir, for elaborate this reply. So main reason as per you, where Mao Zedong, he just realized his purpose, right? Number two, there were some logistic issues, and China has got fear that US may come in the support of India. So these were the reasons behind the unilateral ceasefire and going back and showing the world that Chinese are very generous. Yeah, they're just ready to. Thank you, sir, for this detailed answer. Now let's see one more question related to 1962 war. That in 1962 war, India faced humiliating defeat. As per your analysis, what were the main reasons for our defeat, and what lessons we have learned from this war? And how do you see today's new India in comparison to China? Because we have advanced a lot, we are nuclear power, our military is modernized, we are capable. So how we see the comparison between India and China in today's context? Sir, over to you.
Main reason for the defeat at that time, I feel, was Prime Minister Nehru and Defense Minister Menon could not correctly read the political intentions of China. Till a day before the war was launched, they were thinking that China will never launch an attack against India. It could be they were expecting some minor skirmishes, but they thought there will never be a war which China will launch against India. This was based on the advice they got from various people, the bureaucrats and others. And whereas at that point of time, the Chinese intentions were very clear. From 1958 onwards, the Chinese actions of preparing for a war, carrying out a reconnaissance of the border, inducting heavy equipment, carrying out exercises, all these activities that started, which were reported clearly by the Indian Consulate General in Lhasa at that point of time. This was actually being carried out to curb the insurgency in Tibet. But at the same time, they were carrying out all these activities right up to the Indian border. So that should have told us that China is capable of doing something if we don't take the right action. Even though that report was coming into India, it was not made use by the bureaucracy or the military. Even the intelligence bureau, which was reporting to the Prime Minister, never said that there is a likely war with China. Until the last day, even after a few rounds were fired at places, they were still telling the Prime Minister that there will not be a war. So that, because of which we were not prepared enough. Then next issue is the Indian military was not well equipped or well deployed, or there were not adequate numbers for deployment. There was not much troops or formations deployed along the LAC. We started moving up just a couple of years before that. It was end of 1960 that we started moving up, thinking China may come across. So we are not prepared well. Our equipment were very old, leftovers from the Second World War. Whereas Chinese had quite modern equipment compared to what India had at that point of time. And they had large number of troops. PLA, there was no problem of numbers for PLA. So I have said, given two reasons. One is that politically we did not read their ambition correctly. Second is we were not well prepared. We did not know how and what they were going to do, and we were not well equipped. And all these issues have come out recently. This month, a book was released, written by Claude RP, who is a Tibetologist. He wrote 4 volumes of a book on Tibet, India, and China relations. The last one was released now, in which all these documents are given. Okay, how China acted in those last periods of leading up to 62. So now we know that we had all these documents with us, but it was not known to the people who actually had to take action based on that. So these are the reasons which I feel that India suffered a defeat. Last part of your question was lessons learned. Did we learn anything out of it?
Yeah, what is the situation? New India and China, the comparison, where we stand. Yeah.
What is happening today now is, in the newspaper you read of the military commander level talks going on, the foreign ministry level talks going on with China. So the 3 important things for India to defend and stand solidly at the border are: one is a well-prepared military, which we have now. Even though we reacted to a Chinese action, but we reacted well, now we are strong there. And we are well equipped, even though we could have got more, which the government is doing to get us more. But what we have now is enough to stop the Chinese. We may not be able to launch an offensive, but we are strong enough to defend them at the line where we are sitting. Second is the diplomatic support and the bureaucratic support, which is quite adequate. Even we have a diplomat going along with the military commander on ground for a talk at the border, which is for the first time. And we all know that the government is strongly supporting the military in whatever action they deem appropriate to be taken. So these 3 issues, the bureaucratic support, the military strength, and the strong support by the government are there. So the new India is prepared, and even if there is a war, it will not be 62.
Thanks for sharing your in-depth research on this issue and enlightening us on various issues. So now let's move to another issue that is related to India-Nepal border problem. Right? We know that India and Nepal have maintained very friendly and cordial relations in the past. But recently we see that some claims of territory in the maps published by the Nepal's government. What are your views on this newly emerged border issue with Nepal? So,
there are 2 places of dispute of border with Nepal, India with Nepal. First is at a place called Susta. This is a case where the boundary was along a river, the river changed its course. So some portion which was with India is with Nepal now. That is a technical issue which can be resolved easily. There is no rhetoric regarding that, and it never comes in the newspaper these days. The only issue which is coming is the dispute at Kalapani. Firstly, because it is at the tri-junction of India, China and Nepal. the Kalapani issue started with a treaty, the Sugauli Treaty, which was done by the British and the Nepalese in 1816. That was not a boundary treaty. But that treaty mentioned that the King of Nepal renounces all claim of territories east of Kali River. That was the only thing mentioned regarding the boundary. And in 1879, the first map was published which showed the boundary between India and Nepal. Those days, remember, all maps were prepared by the British for the entire region. Even Nepalese maps were prepared by the survey of the Royal Survey of India. So that 1879, whatever boundary was marked on that map is continued to be marked in the Indian maps. The Indian maps of now, today also, have the same boundary as 1879. Now coming to the Nepalese maps, up to 2020, whatever the Nepalese maps were published also had the same boundary. On map, they did not have a dispute regarding this place till 2020, when in March, when they declared that they will be publishing a new map. And this was in 1961. There was a boundary treaty signed between Nepal and China, which also showed the India-Nepal boundary, which is matching same as what is shown in Indian maps. Even in those days, Survey of India used to prepare maps for Nepal. All this shows that there was no dispute regarding these issues till 1996, when for the first time a dispute came in the Nepalese newspaper that this area belongs to us and it has to be given back. And India agreed that we will negotiate and we'll see if it is proved that it belongs to Nepal, we'll give it. So that is, as far as I'm concerned, it is not a big issue. There will be negotiations after the COVID thing is over. There will be negotiations, and as far as a legal resolution is concerned, it will come. And even if the matter goes to the International Court of Justice, a legal issue can be given. India, there is precedence that India accepts the rulings given by the International Court of Justice, as we have done with Bangladesh and Pakistan also before. So I don't think this will be a major issue. It will be sorted out in future, but currently it is being played up by some people say China. The Nepalese people don't accept that. So that is something we need to see. Otherwise, it's between India and Nepal, we will get over the problem.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for beautifully covering all the aspects related to the issue. Now let's move to another question. There seems to be a competition between India and China for influencing the South Asian nations. And China also started building overseas military bases like one in Djibouti and sending its PLA troops on expeditionary missions. How do you assess this changing geopolitical situation in the region? Sir.
China, as we all know, has ambition to become the #1 power in the world. Whatever they are doing now is meant towards that. They have declared that by 2050, when they will complete 100 years of existence as a republic, they will become #1. Means they have to overtake USA. To do that, they have to expand outwards. So they are boxed in by the South China Sea and the countries around that. So if to be growing to be #1, China has to grow outwards into the Pacific on one side and Indian Ocean on the other side. They have no other choice. For growing out into the Pacific, they have countries like Australia, Japan, and USA who are not very friendly to them and who are quite powerful. And for growing out into the Indian Ocean, they have to face again USA, India, and other countries. There are many other, even Britain and France also has got enough naval power in the Indian Ocean. So what China is doing is trying to overcome that slowly, making bases. It is not, what they are doing is not meant to be against India. It is in the process of growing to be the number one power. Whereas India is also not a small country. We also have ambitions. We need to grow. If we don't want to be the number one, but we want to be a major power. So India and China being neighbors, the strategic spaces of both countries collide. That's why the differences come in. When the competition, we are competing for the same strategic space. Now coming to the neighboring countries, India's neighboring countries are the South Asian nations. So what China is doing in these countries are the same thing. They are growing outwards. But at the same time, if let me take the example of Nepal. China is investing a lot of money. They're making infrastructure. They're making a railway line right up to the Indian border through Nepal. They're making large number of roads connecting up to the Indian border. So what we need to see is, and what many Chinese scholars have written is, whenever China invests money somewhere, they're not going to do it for free. They expect something in return. Whatever they invest in Nepal, they cannot get adequate return. There is not much for Nepal to export into China. And being a small country, they can take very little from China. So to Chinese ultimate aim is not Nepal, but to gain an entry into India, through India to the ports of Calcutta and again to the ocean. This has been told clearly. So it is unless the ultimate aim of China in investing in our neighbors is to gain an entry into India. Whether we let that happen or otherwise we cannot see. And the behavior of the smaller countries is everyone, even India is economically growing. We are not as good as China in economy. So we are growing. While growing, we look inwards. We cannot invest much money in Nepal or Bangladesh or our neighboring countries because we have to grow ourselves. Whereas China has a lot of spare money which they are investing. So these smaller countries also take advantage of that. They know that they have to stay with India, but currently they need money and they need Chinese help, so they're taking Chinese help. So it is a normal process of economic growth of all these countries. It is nothing much serious. I think strategically, once India grows strong, they will come to India. Once they themselves are strong, they will stop baiting China and India against each other. That is my view.
Thank you, sir. So in the nutshell, we understood that, yes, this entire issue is related to China's plan or strategy to become number one by 2049, right, when it celebrates 100th centenary of the People's Republic of China. Thank you very much for having such a wonderful discussion with us. I believe that not just we, the attendees, but our viewers will also learn a lot from this series video. Thank you once again for participating in our series. Thank you all for watching our episode. We'll meet in our next episode soon. Keep watching and keep learning. Bye-bye.